I think it was about 11:30 at night. I get up very early to go to work, so I get in bed early. I was asleep. And I heard something, like a train or Niagara Falls, something like that. And it just penetrated my consciousness and started to awaken me. And all of a sudden there was this gigantic explosion. And that was the rear French doors of our house being blown open by the mud flow, the water flow, confluence of both. I came down the stairs, and when I hit the floor, I was up to my knees in this disgusting, muddy, dense water. I came to the front of the house, and he was able to force open the French doors in the front, opening a flow so the water could come in the rear and out the front. So it was probably 8 to 10 miles an hour flowing through the house. Which must have been a hell of a sight from down below. I didn't see it, but I saw up on the top was the water coming through the house and actually cascading over the deck.
The shock was there was a community here, which we knew of. I believe there's 10 homes that were buried, and it was just what happened to this neighborhood. Gone. The slide came down, hit the bank, and all the trees and rocks actually flew and landed in this whole area here. This is Love Creek, and about where the telephone pole is, the debris was gathered up at least 20 feet of rocks and logs, and that's way up to that height. It was at that height right up here where the road takes the upgrade. That was the height of this whole thing. So we had to get over all these rocks to get up to where we had victims and homes that came down through the slide.
I wasn't really nervous about anything happening that night necessarily, but Cindy, the lady who lived in this house, was nervous, and actually that night she slept in the living room close to the exit of the house because she was afraid something was going to happen, and had asked Paul to sleep in the living room with her because she felt that something bad was going to happen, and sure enough, she was right. I was aware of debris flows, the possibility of them happening, but you never think anything's ever going to happen to you or to someone that you know directly. Like something like this here, I mean, there was a small draw here that in '82 had a little slide, but nothing, just a little bit of mud came down the hill. Never thought that the whole mountain, well, the portion of the hillside was going to come through and wipe out your friend's house. Cindy, she's not really sure how she got out. She got thrown clear of the house somehow, and it looks like it went through a rock tumbler is what it looks like. Everything's just kind of mixed up and in a pile. Where's the guy going to be that's just gone through that? You just start moving stuff and calling out his name, hoping that you'll hear him say something, and hoping you don't find him underneath something. You're hoping, the whole time when I was moving stuff, I was hoping that he wasn't going to be there. Just don't be under what I'm lifting up right now. And luckily he wasn't, but unfortunately it didn't matter. The damage was done to him.
The San Francisco Bay Area actually is an ideal habitat for landslides, both shallow and deep. We have a combination of steep slopes, weak rocks, and very intense winter rainstorms. There are two different kinds of landslides in the Bay Area: debris flows and deep-seated slides. The debris flows are relatively small. They're shallow. They occur during periods of heavy rainfall, but they can occur quite suddenly and move very rapidly. This rapid movement makes them very dangerous. They can not only destroy property, they can actually kill people. The deep-seated landslides, on the other hand, are larger, deeper, and tend to occur more slowly and gradually and move more slowly. So they're much less dangerous to life and limb, but they can still cause an enormous amount of property damage. There are certain geologic formations in the Bay Area that are notorious for spawning landslides. For example, in the East Bay Hills, you have the Orinda Formation. Some of its members are quite weak, clay stones, and when they get wet, they can begin to slide. On the San Francisco Peninsula, the serpentine areas or greenstone areas are notorious for deep-seated landslide. Here in the Santa Cruz Mountains in La Honda, there's a very young marine formation called the Purisima Formation, and it's quite weak. Relatively uncemented sands and fairly weak clays. In fact, you can snap off a big piece relatively easy, like a big cookie.
This is so unreal. I still can't believe it. My parents bought this house about 5 years ago. It's going to be a retirement home. We repainted last year, put the green shutters on. The interior's been all fixed up, new floors. My mother's quite a garden. The whole area is garden. You can see what's left of the garden. It's just, she loves gardening. We put everything they have in this house. It's a $400,000 home. The insurance will pay $2,000 for moving expenses, but basically that's it. The house will probably never be retrievable from this state, and they'll never be able to build on this lot again because this is no longer a probable slide area. This is a definite slide area. One geologist said it's a very slow-moving slide, that the house probably will not go down the hill or slide down the hill, but basically will continue to do this drop, lift, and slowly tear itself apart where it'll actually collapse in on itself. And that seems to be paying out. If you notice Bill's house, that's exactly what it's doing. There is a slow movement down the hill with Bill's, and there's a slow movement with my parents down the hill, but it's like maybe 1 inch, 2 inches a day. It's mainly this drop and lift, which is the biggest motion that we've noticed.
Deep-seated landslides can be very large. Deep-seated landslides can cover tens of square miles in some places. The landslide here on Scenic Drive in La Honda is a relatively small landslide by geologic standards, but of course it has tremendous impact on the people that live here. There are about 10 houses involved in one way or another, and a number of other houses around the edges of the slide. But the slide is relatively small, maybe 7 to 10 acres. The landslide is slowly moving downhill under the influence of gravity, like a thin slab sliding downhill. It's slipping on a weak plane at its base, which we've recognized about 25 to 30 feet below the surface of the slide. And it can move up to feet per day, potentially for months, depending on the amount of water in the slide and the steepness of the slope. The body of the landslide is deforming internally as material slides down the hill. It rumples up like a rug. It breaks apart like the bread crust on top of a rising loaf of bread. And as it advances down slope, it starts to rise up and over the pre-existing landscape.
The anxiety is, I guess, where will it stop and when will it stop?
When the slide began to happen, the fissure had not crossed over this empty lot yet, and people's houses were beginning to slide, and then day by day we would watch that fissure coming across the lot, probably a few inches at a time. And we didn't know where it was going to stop, if it was going to come and hit the garage, or we just had no idea. And then it disappeared behind this big debris of wood pile over there, and never came out the other side. I like to be optimistic about it. I'm here every day with the baby, so I'm reminded of it as I look out every day on it. Dan's off to work, so I try not to think about it and just go about my day-to-day life. And but you look up and you just see, the houses boarded up and the people working out there, and you feel the lifelessness of that area now, where all the people are gone. We want our neighbors back.
Yeah. It's sad to see what our friends and neighbors have gone through. Yes.
We have friends.